The US nuclear arsenal worries China and Russia. On the other hand, China's nuclear arsenal worries Russia and the United States. But all these countries are concerned about North Korea's nuclear program and the expansion of the Islamic Republic of Iran's nuclear program. You must admit that this situation resembles a typical scene from a Western, when a dozen tough guys are holding each other at gunpoint. Some stupid accident, such as a glass or a chair falling over, will cause a terrible massacre. Only the most brutal guy will survive. But we offer to determine the coolest guy without shooting. Watch it right now, but promise, if we can surprise you at least 4 times, you will like this video. The B-61-13 is a new version of the B-61 nuclear bomb, which is the primary type of nuclear munition for the US Air Force. The number 13 indicates that this is the 13th version of the old bomb. It combines the advantages of the previous B-61 modifications. By the way, no government in the world has ever used tactical nuclear weapons in combat. We hope that the number 13 will not mess this statistic up, because a 360 kiloton charge leaves a massive fireball with a radius of more than 4 miles after the explosion. The resulting crater in the ground is comparable to the cinder cone in Lassen Volcanic National Park. However, the new bomb is not designed to make picturesque holes in the ground. Due to the tail fin, its accuracy reaches plus or minus 100 feet. This is enough for a 360 kiloton charge. Now you'll understand why. The point is that America needs the B-61-13 to destroy enemy strategic targets underground, as the crater diameter after the explosion reaches 900 feet and the depth is more than 200 feet. But first of all, it acts as a restraining factor. American General Ben Hodges believes that nuclear weapons are the most effective when they are not used. And now you'll be surprised for the first time. The appearance of the B-61-13 will not increase the total number of weapons in the US nuclear arsenal. It will replace old nuclear weapons. That is, it is not a new arms race. But why then are Russia and China, which are building up their nuclear arsenal right now as you watch this video, worried? The carriers. These are the ones that worry potential US adversaries. Top US nuclear weapons carriers reveal the main advantages of the new bomb. First of all, we are talking about the most prominent bomber in the history of aviation, the Northrop B-2 Spirit. Fortunately, it is in service with the US Air Force, not China or Russia. The advent of the B-2 Spirit is associated with events that are scattered in time. The first dates back to the beginning of 1939, when Jack Northrop, we have to mention his name, began with the dream of a flying wing aircraft. However, the technology of the time did not allow the American genius to move further than just prototypes. The first propeller-powered flying wing prototypes that took to the skies in 1940 showed that the flying wing was very unstable in flight. Instability is evident on all 3 axes. However, in 1947, Northrop built another prototype, the YB-49, with a jet engine. The result was the same. Nevertheless, time and more than $44 billion spent on research, development, and the construction of 21 prototypes eventually overcame the problem. But this happened almost 50 years later. Unfortunately, the author of the idea did not make it to that moment. The United States had to take such a risk and incur substantial financial costs because the improvement of the Soviet air defense systems in the mid-1970s forced the US Air Force to look for ways to increase the survivability of its aircraft. The most promising direction turned out to be reducing visibility. The result was an airplane entirely unlike any other aircraft ever built. The following measures can reduce the B-2 Spirit's visibility: reflecting radar radiation, reducing thermal radiation from engines and airframe, masking radiation from onboard systems, reducing the inversion trace and smoke and exhaust gases, etc. The unique body coating that absorbs radar radiation is so delicate that a pilot with untrimmed nails cannot board the aircraft. The nails must be trimmed on the hands and feet. Okay, the feet thing is a joke, unless the pilot boards the plane barefoot. Each B-2 Spirit has its own name, and with it, its own hangar house, where the temperature and humidity are consistently maintained at a comfortable level, as the entire body is stuffed with sensors. It was due to them that the flying wing was stabilized in flight. Every moment of the flight is controlled not by humans, but by computers that receive signals about the aircraft's position in space from the sensors inbuilt into it. That is why the serviceability of each sensor is extremely important. The B-2 Spirit has a 172-foot wingspan, but resembles a sparrow on radar screens. It has no afterburners, so it is very slow, but the B-2 Spirit doesn't need to be in a hurry. It can hover in the sky for a day or even 2 if necessary. This bomber can sneak up on a target at subsonic speed, drop a B-61-13 nuclear bomb on the target, and return to base safely. You just need time to close the bomb base securely, because every protruding part or even a gap gives the enemy's radar a chance to detect the aircraft. By the way, if the explosion does occur, there will be no photos or videos of it. All civilian digital cameras will be turned off, if not by direct burning of the sensor, then by the electromagnetic pulse of the explosion. But now you'll be surprised a second time. The B-2 Spirit is projected to remain in service with the US Air Force until the end of the 21st century, i.e. almost 100 years. How is this possible? In fact, this is not a problem for bombers. For example, the US Air Force has 45 B-1B Lancers in service. Some of them are over 40 years old. They're pretty young. Another example is the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress. Despite being in service for over 70 years, the US Air Force operates 72 units. They are expected to remain in service with the US Air Force until 2050. Some of the aircraft will be almost 100 years old at that point. Each of the 3 types of bombers, except for missiles with nuclear warheads, is technically capable of carrying the B-61-13 because they have a previous modification of this bomb in their arsenal. The B-2 Spirit can take 16 B-61-11 bombs, the B-1B Lancer can carry 24 B-61s, and the B-52 Stratofortress can carry 8 B-61-11s. But why does the US Air Force need 3 types of bombers? The point is that each bomber has weaknesses that result from its advantages. For example, the flying wing is invisible to enemy radar, but to maintain this advantage, the B-2 Spirit has no external bomb and missile hangars, and the internal bomb bay has space limitations. Therefore, the B-2 Spirit carries only 18 tons of weapons. While the B-2 Spirit overcomes enemy air defense at subsonic speeds at an altitude of 50,000 feet, the B-1B Lancer bomber does so at subsonic speeds, but at an altitude of 200 to 500 feet, avoiding terrain. However, this bomber can rise up to 60,000 feet above the ground and accelerate to 825 miles per hour. A geometry-changing wing provides the B-1B Lancer's versatility, but most importantly, it can take up to 60.5 tons of weapons, 34 tons in the internal compartments, and 24 tons on external suspension lugs, and deliver this deadly cargo over 3,450 miles and then return it. 3,450 miles is the combat radius of the B-1B Lancer, but it's not a record either, because the B-52H Stratofortress has a combat radius of 1,000 miles more. This old guy can fly 4,500 miles, do his job, and then return to base after covering the same distance. And it has done this more than once. Well, it's time to be surprised again. The US Air Force will have not 3, but 4 types of bombers. A US Air Force spokesman said the new 6th generation B-21 Raider bomber is taking part in taxiing tests at the 42nd Aircraft Plant in Palmdale, California. In addition, 5 more B-21s are at various stages of production. It is known that the first B-21 Raider has completed at least 1 flight. The B-21 is quite similar to the B-2 in its flying wing aerodynamic shape. Yes, it is also a stealth aircraft, and the name Raider came in honor of the pilots who avenged Pearl Harbor. But it is 1.5 times smaller than the B-2, and its air intakes do not extend beyond the central projection at all. The explanation is simple: fewer panels, fewer joints, fewer protruding parts, and less radar visibility. Of course, the most exciting things are hidden from outsiders. However, it is known that the Northrop Grumman engineers have allowed the bomber to be operated in unmanned mode. However, the main thing is that the B-21 Raider has an open architecture. This will enable it to be constantly updated, like a Tesla or your iPhone. All this is done without a separate modernization program, which always requires money. The B-21 Raider is the first bomber in the world to appear in the 21st century. Over time, it will replace the B-52, B-1B, and B-2 and become the primary strategic aircraft of the United States for 100 years to come. But for some time, all 4 American bombers will work together. Neither China nor Russia has anything like this. The Russian Air Force currently has 3 types of bombers: 2 95MS, 2 160, and two 22M3. The total number of aircraft is at most 140. The first, Tu-95, up to 60 units left in the Russian VKS, was commissioned in 1956. Although the aircraft is codified as a Bear according to NATO codification, it is the world's fastest turboprop aircraft. However, it is still slower than the American B-1B Lancer, and the Bear cannot fly 200 feet above the ground. The most dangerous and deadly is the Tu-160 White Swan. According to NATO classification, the aircraft is classified as a blackjack. It is Putin's favorite. There are about 20 of them in service. The Blackjack, or White Swan as it is called, holds several world records. It remains the heaviest and fastest bomber in the world. The Blackjack can carry almost 45 tons of weapons. Its maximum speed is nearly Mach 1.6, but this aircraft carries only 12 cruise missiles. This is significantly less than any American bomber. The Tu-22M3 is a backfire on NATO codification. They say that Russia has 40 backfire missile carriers. It also holds records. First, it is one of the most secretive aviation projects of the USSR. Secondly, backfire is the most useless bomber in the world. Its combat radius is only 1,500 miles, which is insufficient today. In general, the Tu-22M3 is similar to the American F-111, which was decommissioned in the 1990s. And he's also the least lucky that a long time ago, Ukrainians shot down a backfire 200 miles from the front. That is, backfire should not only fly far from the base, but also fly close to enemy positions. Have you noticed that Russia does not have a single stealth bomber? Yes, they are not even in the pipeline. This means that in the next 50 years, Russia's strategic aviation will not be able to compete with the United States. And what about China? Currently, China's primary bomber is the H-6 aircraft. In fact, it is a copy of the Soviet Tu-16, which was produced from 1953 to 1963. Therefore, this aircraft cannot overcome modern air defense. Its tactic is to launch long-range munitions. But recently, People's Liberation Army Air Force Deputy Commander Wang Wei said that China's first stealthy strategic bomber, the Xi'an H-20, would soon be unveiled to the public. However, the published videos turned out to have been created using computer graphics. The footage of an unidentified large airplane covered with a blanket indicates that it may have a flying wing design. Analysts have dubbed the H-20 Storm. It is poised to enhance China's long-range strike capabilities, potentially reaching as far as the US West Coast with a payload of 45 tons. The H-20 could change the strategic balance between the United States and China. However, a photo of the H-20 alone cannot do that. That is why China is nervous about the B-61-13 bomb and the new US aircraft. We hope this video has surprised you. We are witnessing the most radical changes since the end of the Cold War. We are making it clear to any potential adversary once again, the risk and cost of aggression far outweigh any possible benefits. This is American deterrence, Austin said at the B-21 unveiling ceremony to the public. Will Russia or China ever be able to catch up with the United States in bomber development? And which country will be the first to do so? Share your thoughts in the comments.